Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the recent sworn in of Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States of America and how it seems that his policies, once he take charge of the US administration, is going to impact India. And basically, we are going to discuss about the major challenges that lies ahead against the Indian government or overall Indian diplomacy to tackle the threats coming from the Trump's overall government policy. Now, if we talk about why we are discussing this topic, so yesterday, that is on Monday, Donald J. Trump has been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. And during his swearing in ceremony, he has talked about bringing what he refers as a thrilling new era of success, obviously referring to the success of his home country, United States of America. Not only that, he also has termed that his foreign policy or any of his government policy will be driven by what he refers as revolution of common sense, and it will try to bring America back from the liberal and extremist order that he referred as at home and also a declinist pessimism abroad. These are the two terms that he has mentioned in the ceremony. In the inaugural speech also, he has talked about setting a stage for what is referred as controversial and very potentially transformative second term as the American president. And even today, on the first day of his presidency, he has signed so many executive order that seems to be challenging the earlier stance United States has taken, at least in the Joe Biden's presidency. Now, if you look at the key takeaways that we can take from the swearing in ceremony and his speech here, that first of all, he has attacked the last administration of USA, calling it as corrupt. And also he has alleged that under the Biden's presidency, United States has been involved in so many catastrophes and unnecessary war abroad. Also has talked about major challenges, domestic challenges and crises that we are witnessing in US, that is because of the corrupt establishment of the previous administration. So obviously he wants to change it. That is his main motive. Also, he has talked about that his policy will be something that will be radically different, or it will have a radical departure from a longest standing policies that US has basically unveiled on the areas of immigration as well as trade. For example, in the context of immigration, he has talked about that he will bring again a stronger border control along the Mexican border in the south. He also has talked about that as far as the trade is concerned, he is going to impose at least 25% tariff in the first stage with the neighbors of US, that is Mexico in the south and Canada in the north. Not only that, he also has talked about that during his administration, there will be no limit on the free speech. No one will be criticized and penalized if they are exercising their right of speaking freely. And thus, he will promote race and gender identities. There he has talked about that we will identify only two gender, that is a male and female. All other classification will be done away with. This also he has talked about in the US military, which will be implemented. And also he has mandated green choices on the consumer. He said that this is something that he does not like. He has given the dictum that is drill baby drill. That means he will put or remove all the restrictions and limitations that in the previous administration was imposed upon the US oil and gas sector. So the green choices that he feel was mandated upon, put forcefully on the consumers, is something that he does not agree with and he will remove. And at last he said that he wanted his legacy to be as a role of peacemaker. That means at the international level, at the global level, he wants to negotiate a peace treaty, peace agreement between all the countries which are at confrontation or at war with each other. And he has talked about in this area about the Israel-Hamas ceasefire agreement that has been signed. Now, the major issues that India can face is in the trade policy. So, as far as the trade policy is concerned, obviously in his first speech, he has not clearly specified that what kind of tariff or whether he is going to impose any kind of specific tariffs from the countries such as India, China, and not. However, he definitely has reaffirmed the commitment to taxing the imports to promote domestic manufacturing. And this is something that is in line with his America First policy, also what he refers as generally as a Make America Great Again. So he believed that by having a lesser extent of tariff on the goods that is originating from the countries and coming to US, it is the US consumers and the US manufacturers that has to pay the heavy price, and he want to change it. And also he has said that on the line of IRS, that is the Internal Revenue Service, that is largely responsible for collecting taxes from the US citizens, he will set up external revenue service ERS that will complement the work of IRS and will collect the tariffs and all kind of taxes from the countries, from the other countries from which the trade or the US is having a bilateral trade relationship. Now, as far as the ties with India is concerned, India and the United States, at least in past 2 decades, have steadily seen a rise in the ties of bilateral ties along an upward arc. And this is something that we can see being noticeable from the George W. Bush presidency itself, when India and US signed Civil Nuclear Cooperation Framework Agreement. However, many experts argue that once Donald Trump has taken the office, India should be ready to deal with a transactional Trump. Transactional here refers to the Trump will not deal with India in the similar way how the previous presidency have dealt with. He will not be so much willing to give emphasis on the historical relationship both countries have enjoyed. Rather, he will be a businessman. That means he will ask India what you have to offer, and accordingly same thing or similar kind of things US will also offer. So this is something that we are referring as a transactional term, who is determined to put America first. So for him obviously, it is the America's interest that will drive his policy rather than the India's interest. Now, many experts argue that it can go both ways. For example, there are some positive points of it also. If you talk about the Trump, he has a policy of what we can call as hardball realism, which can be more easier to engage with than the earlier government, where they have shown a policy of liberal hypocrisy or a policy of condescension. For example, many reports have come from the United States which talk about the minority rights in India, which talk about the freedom right that has been given to the press or press freedom overall in India. So they always kept on kind of talking toward India that they have to improve in all these spheres. On the other hand, Trump's policy largely will be, as we have discussed, a transactional policy. He will not focus, as per experts, so much on the domestic issues or the domestic policy of India. He will focus more on the interest of both countries, and that has long marked US foreign policy. Now with Trump, it would seem what you see is what you get. That means you do not have to guess a lot that what US is going to do or what the US president is going to do. What Trump will say, it seems that definitely that is what he is going to do. Now the concern that can arise especially is in the area of trade and immigration. And thus experts believe that India's diplomacy should now temper its tendency to take the relationship for granted. Anything can change in a short duration of time. And thus it is an imminent time when India should marshal all its negotiating skills and give and take in advancing ties. For example, it is also argued that for starters, India can reduce the extent of tariff it imposes on the American goods that is being exported to India. That is one way how give and take works. Second is internal reform in India should be done to tackle making America great again, and contrasting stance on climate change is also something that India has to worry about, because you know that especially under the Prime Minister Modi's administration, India has put a heavy emphasis on the climate change and its adverse effect, and that is why we talk about the Paris summit, or when we talk about the Paris agreement, that has been the forefront of the India's government policy. Now obviously the first thing that Trump has done is he has taken US out of the Paris deal, and that is something where India also will not be able to engage with US anymore. Apart from this, if you look at the major challenges, is obviously since Donald Trump want to make America again a much more stronger nation, or in other way you can say he want to see America as a superpower, as a in the unipolar world. This is something that goes against the interest of India, because India has always advocated a multipolar world where power should not be dominated by a single country, which is contrast to the stance of Trump. Second, he also has criticized and has even threatened that any country who will try to replace dollar or the dollar hegemony will face the wrath of US. So the India's attempt at the internationalization of rupee can also see a kind of downward spiral once Donald Trump makes such kind of policies, such kind of deals. Third is India has portrayed itself as a leader of global south. So how relevant it will be, especially we talk about the strategic autonomy that India has enjoyed in the previous US president's terms in the context of Russia relationship. That also might change, as Trump has said that he will impose more heavy sanctions on the Russia. So how India will deal with the outcome of all this, that also we have to wait and watch. But overall, many experts argue that the strategic autonomy that India has enjoyed without a lot of pressure from US, that might change in the Trump presidency. When you talk about the strategic autonomy, it basically refers to the decision that a country makes in its own national interest without any pressure or fear of other countries. Now, if we try to understand that Trump obviously is also going to face a lot of pressure and a lot of criticism, and many critics argue that, including if talk about the liberals, environmentalists, and human rights activists, because his policy seems to be against all these ideas, and they also have talked that the golden age which Trump claims to bring is nothing but a kind of what you can say word. So, on the other hand, if we talk about the Trump's core domestic support group, he will keep on enjoying support of this group. These are, for example, the corporate world, the tech titans. For example, we know that many of the tech giants and their CEOs were in attendance in the swearing-in ceremony, and the working classes as well as the social conservative. So, in essence, what we can say that obviously by looking at the Trump's first speech after his swearing-in ceremony, he has sounded the bugle for prolonged battle against the liberal hegemony that has long dominated America's domestic and foreign policy. And obviously, such a massive shift or tectonic shift in the US policy and overall ideology from liberalism to conservatism, from we can say from liberalization toward the protectionism, this is going to have a significant impact. And even if America's internal war will inevitably envelop America's relations with the rest of the world, including India, and India should be able, or India should be ready to tackle all the challenges that we might see coming in the next few years when the Trump is president. So that is all about this particular video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you.